Let's talk about seller permits. And the question is, how do you get it? How do you get a seller's permit? How do you actually go about getting it? And how do you maintain that seller's permit as you actually navigate your business life? Here's the overview I want you to pay attention to. First of all, what is a seller's permit? Now, a seller's permit allows you to collect the taxes owed to the state's Department of Revenue for the sale of goods and services. And the thing is that most states require you to collect sales tax when selling products or services. And this amount needs to then be repaid to the Department of Revenue. And it may not really matter if the products are sold in person or online. That's the thing. A lot of folks believe, well, if I'm selling online, if I'm an eBay seller, if I'm an Amazon seller, I don't need to charge a sales tax. You need to charge a sales tax. So I just want to clarify everything. So when you think about seller's permit, think about a sales tax permit or a sales and use tax permit. I mean, those names are interchangeable. So when you hear the terms seller's permit, let's say a sales and use tax permit or sales tax permit, those mean the same thing. So this is basically a business license that allows you to collect sales tax on taxable goods and services. Your business is then responsible for sending the tax you have collected to your state taxing authority. You gotta send this at periodic intervals. Okay, seller's permits are state specific, meaning they allow you to collect and remit the required sales tax in the state where the permit is issued. Okay. Now, it's important to understand that because seller's permits are state specific, you may actually need more than one if you conduct business in multiple states. And the seller's permit often includes a state tax ID number, and this doesn't replace the EIN obtained for federal tax purposes from the IRS. Very important. Okay, so I just want to really clarify that. So when you hear the terms sales tax license, vendor's license, retail license, seller's permit, certificate of authority, or business tech account, those mean the same thing. They mean the same thing depending on the state where you got the permit from. Boss, welcome back to the show. It's really a pleasure to have you here. Make yourself comfortable. You are going to enjoy today's conversation. Now, let's talk about the things you need to do before you actually receive a permit. It's really important to understand that if you are a business, and it doesn't matter whether you're selling online or you're selling offline, you will need a seller's permit. You must provide the following to receive a seller's permit. So your social security number, and we're talking about all corporate officers excluded. Okay, your date of birth, your driver's license number, state ID number, or other ID, example, passport, military ID, those are valid pieces of ID also. The names and location of banks where you have an account, the names and addresses of suppliers, the name and address of bookkeeper or accountant. This is so important because the State Department of Revenue will have to contact or at least interact actively with your accountant or bookkeeper. And this doesn't have to be somebody in the house. This can be a CPA or an accountant that you have that you have subcontracted the work to. Okay, and they'll need also the name and address of personal references, because the state is going to conduct due diligence to make sure that you are legit. And they'll also ask you to provide the expected average monthly sales and the amount of those sales which are taxable. Because remember, when we talk about seller's permit, we're speaking about tax revenue that is due to the states, right? So they are only interested in those transactions that are taxable. They also want you to provide your email address. And they also want to know if you have purchased an existing business. You must also provide the previous permit information, because they want to dig a little bit to see if that permit was valid or legit or problematic anyway. Now remember that partners, corporate officers, limited liability company managers, members, officers must also provide information. So any person who has a significant, let's say, leadership or significant influence over the company must provide information. What about temporary sellers? Now, if you plan to make sales for less than 90 days, for example, Christmas tree, let's say, stands or craft fairs, you may apply for a temporary seller's permit. Boss, I want to quickly remind you of today's topic. We are having a conversation about seller's permit. How do you get it? Now, let me give you the review you need to really pay attention to here. So what are the types of businesses that require a seller's permit? Whether you need a seller's permit or not will depend on what you sell and where you sell it. Remember, the laws are different from one state to another. Most states require retail and e-commerce businesses to collect and remit sales taxes, though in some states, certain items such as food or clothing are exempt. Some states also levy sales tax on certain types of services, and the business may be required to collect local sales tax, in addition to state taxes. Okay, so what are the businesses that need a seller's permit? Well, the thing is that the rules on the goods and services that are taxable vary by state, so we can't really sit here and just tell you, for your specific state, this is what qualifies. This will be too long. But state tax the sales of most retail goods, such as clothing, appliances, electronics, and liquor. Many states also charge sales tax on some services, such as restaurants, equipment repair and installation, personal services like hair salons, and the leasing of some products and services. So what you want to do here is you want to check with the taxing agency in the states where you operate to find out if your business is required to collect sales tax, and if it is, you can usually apply to the same agency for a seller's permit. Now, only 5 states, Delaware, New Hampshire, Oregon, Alaska, and Montana, do not impose sales taxes and do not require seller's permits. But Alaska and Montana allow local governments to levy their own sales tax. So what happens here is that if your business operates in one of those geographies or those localities, you will need to check with the city or county to learn about their requirements and procedures. Okay, so 5 states that do not have sales tax, we have Alaska, Delaware, Montana, New Hampshire, and Oregon. So this is kind of cool. And so one thing I want to say before closing on this section is that many states require online sellers to collect sales tax on purchases made in the buyer's states or delivered to those states, regardless of where the business is based. If your online business routinely sells to buyers in other states, you should check with the taxing agency in those states to learn their requirements. Let me give you a few pro tips here. So what do you actually get a seller's permit? Well, the thing is that everything depends on the states where your business operates, right? So the process for getting a seller's permit will be slightly different in every state. Most states require you to complete an application with their Department of Revenue. So what you want to do is your first move will be to check with business regulatory and taxing agencies to see what the process is in the states where your business is located. Okay, so but this is if you have a physical, let's say a business that operates offline. But what if you are doing business online? Well, as a general rule, online businesses need to obtain a seller's permit for each state where they have a physical location. Businesses typically must collect and remit sales tax for sales to in-state customers, but they may also be required to collect taxes from out-of-state customers if they meet a certain threshold of sales in that state. And however, rules again vary from state to state, so it's important to do your research. And the best is you can also ask us in the comment section. You can tell us your city and states, and we'll let you know the rules in your geography. Now let's talk about seller's permit versus wholesale certificate. A wholesale certificate, also known as a resale certificate, allows your business to purchase inventory from another business without paying sales tax. It avoids double taxation of goods that are purchased for resale. Okay, for example, suppose your business sells printed t-shirts and you buy a supply of blank t-shirts from a wholesale distributor. If you have a wholesale certificate, you won't pay sales tax on your t-shirt purchase. Instead, you will collect and pay the applicable sales tax when you sell your printed shirts to consumers. In many states, you will get a resale permit along with your seller's permit, but check with your state's Department of Revenue to make sure, because again, as I said, the rules here are not really standard across the board. Every state has its own sort of requirements, so it's always better to ask. Boss, I want to quickly remind you of today's topic. We're talking about seller's permit, how to get it. Let me give you a bonus here. The big question is that, can you get a seller's permit online? Well, it really depends. Some states have updated their systems to accept online applications for seller's permits. So you want to check with your state Department of Revenue to see what the process is and whether you can complete the whole thing online. And so when we talk about a business license, this is totally different from an LLC. Okay, an LLC is a company, is a type of business entity formed for liability and tax reasons. A business license allows you to legally conduct business. There are many types of business licenses issued by any states, local or federal government, and your business may need more than one type of license. Any type of business entity can get a seller's permit or other business license. So this is really important. And the good thing is there are 5 states that do not require a business license. So as I said before, Alaska, Delaware, Montana, New Hampshire, and Oregon. And one thing you need to also, as you are applying for a seller's permit, make sure you don't confuse this permit with a resale certificate. Okay. And one thing I also need to say here is that you need to understand that the same state taxing agency that issues seller's permit usually issues resale certificates. Rules vary widely by states, and you will need to check with the state taxing agencies in the state where you're buying goods for resale if it's different from the state where you sell the goods. Okay, let me give you an example. Some states allow you to use a resale certificate issued by another state. For instance, New Jersey allows you to use a resale certificate issued by New York. Some states require you to register by completing an application form and actually providing your seller's permit number and your federal employer identification number, your EIN. Other states require you to get a seller's permit from the states where you are making your purchases for resale in order to apply for a resale certificate. So the rules are totally different. And we have seen in the last few years that a lot of states have now tried to get closer in terms of the regulatory landscape to allow entrepreneurs, to allow sellers and resellers to get their certificates ASAP. Let me talk to you about the steps you need to really take if you are trying to apply for a seller's permit. Now, once you have determined that the products you sell or the service you provide are subject to sales tax, you'll need to file an application for a seller's permit. If you do business in more than one state, you'll have to apply for a permit in each state where you operate, and some states require you to file separate applications for each location, even when the location is in the same state. So again, the rules vary different. Like they are really wide, like very different. Most states allow you to file your application online, and you will usually receive your permit faster if you choose the online option over US mail. That's for sure. Now, fees vary Fees vary by states rather. Many states do not charge a fee for seller's permits, but for states that do charge a fee, the cost can range from $10 to $100. A few states also require a security deposit. So state rules also vary as to the information and documentation the issuing agency requires. In general, you need to provide the following items. We're going to put this on the screen so you have a clear idea what you need to provide. So your EIN and tax ID number, the name of your address and the address of each of your locations, the contact information for each business owner, including the home addresses and social security numbers, the type of business entity, for example, a sole proprietorship, partnership, limited liability company, or corporation, a description of your business. This is a very important element for state taxing authorities, bank account information. So they want to know if you have a history of, financial improprieties. They want to have your NICS code. So NICS actually stands for North American Industry Classification System. So this is the code for the product you sell. The date you will begin to collect taxes, because that's what the state is really interested in. the license numbers for any licenses required for the business, such as a liquor license, for instance. And also the state, the tax authorities want to they want to have an estimate of your annual sales or sales taxes you expect to collect, as well as they want to have your articles of incorporation or articles of organization if required for your business entity. Let me talk to you about other things that you need to know about permits. I mean, there are additional points to keep in mind when applying for a seller's permit, and this is actually applicable across the board. It doesn't matter where you are at right now, where you operate from right now. So depending on the states, it can take from a day to several weeks to receive your permit. Again, it's not about anything is wrong, like something is wrong with your application. It could be maybe the application got lost. That's why when you send it, you can send it via regular mail, or you can send it via express mail with some confirmation of receipt. And or it depends on it could depend on the backlog. If they are really busy, then you will have to wait a long time before getting your seller's permit. And some states require you to display your permit if you have, let's say, a physical location. And some states issue seller's permit for a specific amount of time, like a year or two. So you're gonna have to renew. You're gonna have to renew, and others issue permits for the life of the business. So you could need to renew your permits or reapply. It really depends on the state where you are in. Many states apply penalties for failing to get a seller's permit. So it's important to really understand, if you need additional help, you can always talk to someone at your state's tax department. Many agency websites provide helpful online resources to guide you through the process. If you need additional help or have legal questions regarding your specific business, contact a business attorney. It's all about getting the right wisdom, if you will, the right type of expertise. And one thing I also want to say here is that you need to understand whatever works for you whatever works in one state may not be applicable to another state. So don't say, listen, we've been doing this like this in Georgia, so chances are it will be the same thing in Florida. You might be surprised. You might be really surprised. So it's always good to take some time to do some research and know that you are getting exactly the type of business license, a business like seller's permit that you deserve. And the last thing I want to say before closing today's conversation is that when you get a seller's permit, remember that you might need to renew it. So which means what? You need to be in good standing, not only within the state, but also at the national level. Because if they do a research, let's say a background search to renew your license 2 years from now, they realize that you didn't use the seller's permit, let's say appropriately, you might actually doom your chances of receiving a new seller's permit. Thank you so much for your attention. I really appreciate it. Let me just do a quick recap here. So I was just talking to you about how to get a seller's permit. So I gave you the overview, the review, the pro tips, the bonus, and the steps. Thank you. God bless you. I'll speak to you another time. Until then, remember, stay marvelous.